And I tell a famous story about how I gave a woman at an airport the tip of drinking warm water. I left for 3 months. I came back and she had lost quite a bit of weight. And when I asked her what she did, she said she just switched all of her beverages to warm water or tea without the tea. And she wasn't terribly overweight, but she had a little extra weight. And when I came back, she was slim enough that I didn't recognize her. Hello, and welcome back to the How to Take Care of Yourself podcast. I'm Veronica Wolff-Casey, your host, and I am absolutely thrilled that you would take time out of your day to join me here in this place that's just for us to talk about your health. Today, we're diving into a topic that is touchy for a lot of people, but it's one that's come up a few times as a request. And it's one that I talked about in a reel on Instagram that went very viral. And I think it really is important for us to discuss because there's a lot of misinformation out there about it. And people get caught up in all of these fads and other things. And that's weight management. Yeah, no matter which direction you fall on the scale, it seems to be something that everyone is thinking about in one way or another. And I say everyone, but really, in no offense to any gentleman that may be on here, because I know you struggle as well, but women especially are faced with a lot of societal pressure to be one way or another, right? You're either too thin or too big, or we never seem to be able to be satisfied with where we're at. And I'm not going to get into the psychological ramifications of all that today. What I'd like to do is just talk about how Ayurveda looks at weight management, whether it's to gain weight or to lose weight. And in Ayurveda, we don't do calorie counting. There's no starvation. There's no toxic diet culture bullshit. It's just wisdom. And it's really trying to live in tune with the way your body naturally works. So we're not going to talk about which food is right for you today because that's a personal experience. There's no one size fits all in Ayurveda. But what we will talk about is Agni, which is the digestive fire that regulates metabolism. We'll talk about Ama, which are the toxins that can sabotage healthy weight management. We'll talk about drinking warm water, which is really the easiest trick in the book to help to boost digestion and burn fat. We'll talk about why you should eat cooked food over raw. And before you salad lovers and raw food vegans come at me, this is really just according to Ayurveda. You may have found success in whatever diet you're following. I'm not here to attack you on that. Like, good for you. Well done. I'm just discussing what Ayurveda has to say about when the digestion's not working well and why cooked food can sometimes be what helps us to actually regulate our weight in a positive way, right? That doesn't feel like we're starving ourselves. And then we'll also talk about eating the right amount and how to tell when you're full. And I've gone over some of these tips in the Ayurvedic diet tips that I gave towards the beginning of the year, and I'll link to that down in the show notes. But I just felt that so many people, and I'm talking, I got hundreds of messages about this topic in the last few weeks that made it very clear that we needed to talk about it. And so here we go. So we're starting with Agni, Agni. And so Agni is what we consider as the digestive fire. In Ayurveda, Agni is your metabolic power. It's what breaks down foods. It's what extracts nutrients. It's what burns fat. When you're Agni, your digestive fire is strong. Your digestion is efficient. You feel good in your body. You feel light, energized. Your body naturally maintains a healthy weight. When it's weak, food can sit undigested. It turns into toxins or ama, which we'll talk about in another moment here. and leads to sluggish metabolism, bloating, weight gain, or just a general feeling of being heavy, right? I get it all the time when my digestive fire gets blown out. True fact, I made this amazing sweet potato spoon fudge. It was supposed to be sweet potato truffles, but I added too many sweet potatoes and it's too soft to turn into truffles. But it's very heavy because it's sweet potatoes and it's chocolate and it's ghee and it's delicious. And last night I ate way too much of it because I had just made it and it was still warm and it tastes like chocolate pudding. And anyone who knows me knows that chocolate pudding is like my weakness. If you ever want to kidnap me, you could just bring a bowl of chocolate, homemade, none of this packaged stuff, but homemade chocolate pudding, and I might follow you anywhere. But anyway, I ate too much of it. And then even though I did it a couple of hours before bed, I had kind of blown out my Agni. It was too heavy for me to digest. And I just felt so gross, so bloated and heavy and just, yucky. That's the best word I have for it. I felt yucky. And I went to bed and I was like, oh, I hope I feel better in the morning. And sure enough, I got up in the morning and I did some of my tricks that I know helps to boost my digestive fire. And I didn't eat any more of the spoon fudge. I let it ride for now until my digestive fire is back up, because when the Agni is weak, when your digestive fire isn't working the way it ought to be, you can absolutely feel bloated and heavy and kind of yucky, right? Especially after meals. And that's even sometimes if you eat something light, if your digestive fire isn't there to sort of catch the food and cook it internally, because that's what digestion is. It's you cooking the food into your body so that your body can use it, which is one of the reasons why we eat cooked food on the outside of the body, but we'll get there. So your digestive fire's job is to break down that food. And so if it's not strong, it has a hard time. And if we're not eating appropriately for that digestive fire or trying to build that digestive fire back up, then we have a hard time. And so another way to know if your digestive fire is weak is if you feel tired after eating instead of feeling energized. And this was definitely me for a long time. Tell me if this sounds like you. You're starving. You know you should eat, or you've ignored your digestive fire for so long that you're not starving anymore, but you still know you should eat and you have all this energy, but it's more like frantic energy, right? You feel a little bit like the Energizer Bunny, like you can get everything done and then you eat and you're like, that's it, you're done. You have to go crash, right? You just kind of fall over. You're all done. That used to happen to me all the time. It's backwards. You should feel tired when you're hungry because the fuel tank is empty. And then you should feel energized after you eat. Now, obviously, if you're having Thanksgiving dinner and you've eaten too much, you might feel tired because you've blown out your Agni, most likely, like I did with the spoon fudge last night. But generally speaking, when your digestive fire, your Agni is strong, and you eat an appropriate meal of appropriate food, then you're going to feel energized after that meal. Another way to know whether your Agni is weak is that you get strong food cravings, especially for sugar or carbs. If when you're hungry, you immediately are like, oh God, I want cake, I want pastries, I want bready stuff. If that's what you're craving all the time, that could be a sign that your digestive fire isn't very strong. And then irregular appetite. So sometimes you're hungry, sometimes you're not hungry at all. Maybe you're hungry at inappropriate times. You ate and then you feel like you're hungry again. Now, the deal is there, if you feel hungry 2-ish hours after you've eaten, that's not true hunger. That means that food is moved from your stomach into the rest of your digestive tract. If your hunger's all over the place, your appetite is irregular, that's a sign that your digestive fire, your Agni, is weak. And then one of the last signs, and this is one that I've struggled with, so don't be embarrassed if you've struggled with it, is constipation. sometimes called sluggish digestion, where the food just isn't moving so fast through the body. And if you're not constipated, but you think you might have sluggish digestion, one of the ways to test that is to eat beets and see how long it takes for that beet color to come out in your waste products, whether it's feces or urine. You want to wait for it to be your stool, really, because that will tell us how fast your body is processing food. And so if you're feeling bloated, you're tired after eating, you're having food cravings, your appetite's irregular, or you're suffering from constipation or sluggish digestion, that might mean that your Agni is weak. And modern research actually backs this up. Studies show that poor digestion and gut microbiome imbalances are linked to obesity. And so when your digestion is weak, your body struggles to metabolize food properly, leading to fat storage instead of energy production. Okay? So science backs up Ayurveda all the time, but this is a really strong connection. So first and foremost, we have to make sure our digestive fire is working well if we're going to be healthy overall. And I have to say, sometimes it takes time to get back there. If you're really going to build your digestive fire back up, it can take time. How do we do that? Because this isn't just a listening podcast, it's a doing podcast. So I'm always trying to give you actionable tips that you can use for your own life. And so building your digestive fire back up can be as simple as eating warm, easy to digest foods. Think khichdi or soups. I just made one tonight, actually, because my digestive fire was a little weak, right? So I listened to my body and I made this vegetable and red rice soup with bone broth. Very easy to digest, very light. It really helped. I can actually feel how my body needed that kind of light sustenance. And you might have to do that kind of diet for several days in a row where you're just eating light. Think, sauteed veggies with spices, but vegetables that are easy to digest. This is not the time to break out the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli and the cauliflower. Those are very hard to digest foods. We want to think more maybe sweet potatoes or winter squash, things that are really gentle on the digestion. Another thing you can do to boost your digestive fire is to sip on some ginger tea. If you can tolerate it, not everyone can. If you can't tolerate ginger tea, you might do better with, say, black pepper tea or fennel tea or even a little bit of cumin tea. If you're not sure how to make those ones, they're super easy. All of these teas can be made with your kitchen spices that you have in your cupboard. Little, like 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon of the spice in a cup of warm water. Let it sit till it's cool enough to drink, and then you've got your digestive tea. So easy. Don't let anything stand in your way between this and healthy digestion. It's your birthright to be able to digest your foods well. So use everything you can to get there. And then eating at consistent times every day can really be useful. So eating at the same time every day, training the sweet, soft animal of your body what to expect can help to boost the digestive fire. And following the circadian rhythm can really help with that. And I know some of you that were at the Ayurvedic 101 talk heard me speak about this, how you can't get out of the circadian rhythm. Your body knows on a cellular level when the sun rises and when it sets. It just does. And you might be a night person and you may have trained yourself to do all these sorts of things, just fine. But your body knows when the sun rises and sets. We want to eat our largest meal at midday, somewhere in that area. Lunch needs to be your largest meal. Breakfast is more of a medium meal, and dinner's very small, very light. I hear a lot about intermittent fasting. Ayurveda is the original intermittent fasting. We usually close the kitchen around 6 p.m. and then it doesn't open again until breakfast, which in our house is around 9 a.m. That's a pretty big window in between dinner and breakfast. That's the intermittent fasting. And dinner's light, really easy to digest. We don't want to go to sleep with a bunch of food in our stomach because that's hard on the digestive fire. It's not going to digest well, and we'll end up with ama, which is what we'll talk about here in a moment. Now, my last tip for how to strengthen the Agni is to cook with digestive spices, to let your food be your medicine. I've often told clients and students that the food is a vehicle for the spices, and the spices are the medicine. The food's the medicine too, but the spices are really where it's at. So adding things like ginger and cumin, coriander, fennel, even black pepper is considered a digestive spice. So use them, learn how to use them, get familiar with them. If these ones don't sound good to you, know that also rosemary, thyme, oregano, marjoram, these are all also digestive spices. So if these more kind of Eastern style spices don't sound good to you, feel free to lean into those ones that are super familiar. Okay, let's talk about ama. Ama is the mama of disease. It can be one of the hidden causes of struggling with healthy weight management because ama clogs the channels. What ama is, it's basically undigested metabolic waste. Your body is constantly processing things, right? You eat your food, it goes through your digestive system. Your body's deciding what to keep, what to get rid of, what to assimilate, what to process. But sometimes if the digestive fire isn't appropriate, or you ate something that wasn't appropriate for your digestive fire, or any other number of reasons, you're eating in an emotional state, you're eating while standing, you're eating while on the run, any of these things, you end up with what's called ama. And so ama is actually, and I've seen it, and I don't know that anybody wants to do this, but you could actually look up on YouTube if you ever want to bum yourself out, unless you're a total nerd like me, you can go on YouTube and watch colonoscopy videos. I do it for teaching in a bigger program. Don't think that I'm just hanging out on YouTube watching colonoscopy videos. I do it so that I can show the students what things look like. But you can actually find videos where they're doing the colonoscopy and you can see the ama in the system. It's this kind of thick, sticky coating. And we actually have a coating of ama on our tongue every morning, and it'll be thicker depending on what you eat. So if you've gone out and had beer and pizza, that next morning when you wake up and you go look at your tongue and you go to scrape it, and if you're not scraping your tongue, friend, definitely get a tongue scraper, scrape your tongue. But you scrape your tongue and there's a thick white coating on it, that's ama. And you scrape it off, but that gives you an indication of what's throughout the whole channels. So if you look at your tongue in the mirror first thing in the morning and you see that there's a thick white coating, and sometimes it's off white, sometimes it can be a little yellow, it takes on sometimes the color of whatever you've been eating. Just look, if there's a thick coating, that's a sign that you've got ama. If your body isn't breaking down food properly, it creates this sticky, cloggy mess, and that slows down your metabolism, blocks digestion, and can really challenge healthy weight management. I see a lot of clients, they come in and they say to me, all of a sudden, I can't digest dairy, and I can't digest gluten or wheat. Like, oh, really? All of a sudden, you just can't do that. And I go through with them through discovery, through questioning, did anything change? Are you eating the same things? Is the same dairy, same wheat? We go through all the different stones. We turn them all over. We try to look at everything. But 9 times out of 10, it's that over time, their digestive fire has started to deplete, and the amount of ama has grown in their body. And so I told you before, ama clogs the channel. So you're supposed to have these little villi that freely move food down your digestive tract. They're like little fingers, little tiny, tiny hair-like fingers that help to move the food through your digestive tract. And if ama has built up over time, it starts to impede these villi, these little fingers' ability to move the food through. And so as ama starts to build up, you start to get more and more digestive issues. And that's really what's happening when the case of ama has gotten too extreme. And so how do you know? Well, your digestion starts to feel off. You've got that thick coating on the tongue. You start to feel sluggish and heavy even after a good night's sleep. Even brain fog comes up here. People wake up and they're like, oh, I can't quite get through my day. I feel really tired. Feel like I slept well enough, but I feel kind of off. They can't concentrate. They've got gas, bloating, possibly constipation. Sometimes I see diarrhea. And then unexplained weight gain pops up here. So if you've had a kind of an increase of weight that you can't really figure out, it's not from the holidays, or maybe it is, right? But you can't seem to get rid of it. It's possible that you've got ama. And so research on metabolic endotoxemia shows that toxins produced in the gut due to poor digestion can cause chronic low-grade inflammation. And so in Ayurveda, we look at all inflammation as having some component of ama as the cause. And science backs this up. And if you've got low-grade inflammation in the body, that can lead to obesity. That can lead to insulin resistance. That can lead to slow metabolism. And I know insulin resistance sounds like a good thing, but you don't want to be insulin resistant. You want your body to have the appropriate reaction to insulin. So how do we deal with this? What do we do to clear the ama out of the body? One of the ways we can clear it is to stop snacking. I know we live in a snacky world, and I'm the first to be like, I love a good snack. I actually had to learn to stop buying snacks because after we really doubled down on eating appropriately for our bodies in my household, I was still buying snacks because I love a good snack food, but nobody was eating them. So we ended up with a cupboard full of snacks that were just like all partially opened with like 3 chips out of each bag. So we stopped buying snacks. It's hard because I love snacky stuff. When I was a kid, my favorite dinner, my mom would give me what she called the finger plate, which was basically just snacks for dinner. So like rolled up ham and rolled up cheese and pickles and crackers. And it was like I guess it was more like a little charcuterie plate. Charcuterie plate in the 70s. Bet it was fabulous. Actually, I still have very fond memories of it. But anyway, I digress. If we're going to clear up ama, we want to stop snacking. You have to give your body a chance to digest fully in between meals. Now, if you have some sort of medical condition where a doctor has prescribed eating several times throughout a day, I'm not talking to you, okay? You keep doing whatever your doctor has prescribed for you to do. Everyone else, if you are eating your meal and then eating in between your meals and then eating your meal, your body's never getting an opportunity to fully digest what you've given it. And it's not getting an opportunity to get hungry again in between your meals. And you really should learn to experience true hunger. At least in the United States, it's said that we eat 100% more food than we need because we're chronically overeating, not to mention the fact that we're eating a ton of processed foods all the time. If I were going to give someone advice on how to deal with healthy weight management, on how to make sure that they are really putting their best foot forward as far as success and feeling good in their bodies, I would say eat only 3 meals a day. You heard me say before, lunch is the biggest, breakfast is medium, dinner is small, and then no processed foods whatsoever. If it's got any ingredients that you can't pronounce, don't eat it. If it comes in a box, bag, or a can and it's got more than 3 to 5 ingredients and any of those are preservatives, don't eat it. You don't need complicated food. My favorite meal these days, other than the soup I made, which the soup was just celery, carrots, onion, red rice, Himalayan red rice, which you can find at health food stores, and then chicken broth. It had a bunch of spices, salt, pepper, but that was it. Sometimes I have that with a roast chicken thigh. Sometimes all we eat are roast winter squash. Like that's what we had yesterday. We had roast honey nut squash and pork loin. That was it. That was the meal. It doesn't need to be complicated. Your body actually, especially if we're trying to boost the digestive fire and get rid of ama, our body thrives on simple food. Simple food is the key. Don't let your brain get all, shiny with all these different food trends. And it's not to say that there isn't a time and place for that. 80-20 rule, 80% of the time you eat super simple meals. 20% of the time you go have some fancy elaborate dinner. That's fine. Or fancy elaborate lunch. You'll digest it better. And then making sure that you chew your food really well. And I was just listening to another podcast about this, and I'm afraid I don't remember which one it was because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm not always paying attention to who's saying things. But this woman was talking about how important it was to fully chew your food and how not only did it make it so you ate less because you're taking the time to chew your food, but she said it also helped with assimilation of nutrients, which tells me you're digesting it better, which tells me that there's not going to be as much ama. And she, I think, was talking about, and I think I've heard this before, that you have to chew your food like 30 to 50 times to ensure proper mastication. And so that chewing, that starts the digestive process in your mouth, right? Not only is it breaking down the food into smaller particles so that it's easier to swallow, easier to digest when it gets to your stomach, but it's also filling it with saliva, which has digestive enzymes in it. And then it's allowing it to be well lubricated. It's slowing you down, so you're going to eat less because you're going to recognize your satiation cue when it happens. And it's going to make sure that you digest your food better because it's going to be easier to digest. Then you're not going to get the ama. Your digestive fire is going to be happy. It's going to work out well. One of the last tips I'm going to give you on how to clear ama, because I can actually talk about this topic for hours, is starting your morning out with hot water. Drinking hot water first thing in the morning can help to flush the system out. All right, let's get into the warm water. So warm water is really the simplest trick for fat metabolism. And I tell a famous story about how I gave a woman at an airport the tip of drinking warm water. I left for 3 months. I came back and she had lost quite a bit of weight. And when I asked her what she did, she said she just switched all of her beverages to warm water or tea without the tea. And she wasn't terribly overweight, but she had a little extra weight. And when I came back, she was slim enough that I didn't recognize her. She did it over the course of 3 months. Now, she did work at Starbucks, so I can only imagine that the drinks that she was drinking before that were probably iced and full of sugar and fat and empty calories. And so if she switched all her beverages to warm water, that probably took a lot of the unnecessary caloric intake out of her day. And if that's you, if you're a Starbucks person and you're going to Starbucks and you're getting the iced mocha latte, whatever, blah, 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 you're taking in a lot of calories that aren't necessary. If you're drinking soda, pop, tonic, whatever you call it, it's not great. The body does best when it drinks water, and the body does well if it's drinking warm water. So drinking warm water throughout the day is one of the easiest ways to support digestion and healthy weight management. Ayurveda says that cold water weakens Agni, and the modern science actually backs this up. So don't come at me, all those people that are like, but room temperature is fine. Your body warms the water up as you drink it. It actually, yes, it does, technically. And cold water, when you drink cold water, and you can feel it, friends, when you drink cold water, it constricts the blood vessels and it slows down digestion. Okay? Your body actually constricts. You can feel it starting in the throat, and then it goes down through your esophagus into your stomach, and everything gets cold, and your body has to work harder to warm that water back up. So right off the bat, you're causing issues. Then drinking warm water actually increases the circulation, it speeds up digestion, and it actually can enhance fat metabolism. I like to think of it this way, which is a little unglamorous, but it is one of the best analogies I've found to think about it. Now, some of you might not remember what a grease trap was. And if you've never worked in a restaurant, you may never have encountered one. I think they have different things now in modern kitchens in your home, but in kitchens, especially old-fashioned commercial kitchens, we have a grease trap, which is this thing that's in the floor underneath the dishwasher that is actually to catch all the grease that inevitably gets flushed down the drains. And so you may never have worked in a commercial kitchen, but if you have, you know that the water they use for dishwashing is really freaking hot. It's like burn your skin off hot. So most of the grease gets liquefied and trapped in this thing. But can you imagine if you poured ice cold water down that pipe? Everything would congeal to the side of the pipe. Nothing would get through. And it's the same in your body, friend. Drinking warm water helps to not only soothe the actual physical structures, helps to open up the channels, but it also helps to increase the speed of your digestion. So that tells me that boosts your digestive fire. And when we think about the logic of Ayurveda, like increase like, if we're trying to keep fire burning correctly or keep our digestion working well, adding warmth to that, the warm quality, is only going to help the situation. If you add cold, it's in opposition. I know it's a lot to wrap your head around, but I'll tell you what, it works. I've seen it happen, not just in the woman at the airport, but in other people that I've helped throughout my career. They switch to warm water and it can change everything. Here's my other favorite part about warm water is that drinking warm water stimulates peristalsis. So peristalsis is the muscular contraction that moves things through the digestive tube and most importantly, through the colon. So if you're someone who deals with constipation, which can be sometimes part of what leads to unhealthy weight gain, then drinking warm water is going to help to counteract that by stimulating peristalsis. So that's one of the first things I give to folks that do come to me with constipation is I say, try switching only to warm water for all your beverages and see what happens, right? Obviously, then there's other interventions, but sometimes that's the one that works. I know it works for me. So starting your morning, especially with a cup of warm water, can help to stimulate peristalsis, and it helps to wake up your digestion because warm water is what we call in Ayurveda, it's Deepana Pachana, which means it deepens the Agni. Deepana just means boosts the Agni. But the way I teach people to remember it is that Deepana means it deepens your Agni, so it makes the fire burn more appropriately. And then Pachana means that it pushes the Ama out. Pachana means that it scrapes the channels out. So warm water, I know it's another one of those things in Ayurveda. It sounds too simple to be true, but absolutely it helps. Switching just to warm water can be a solution, but definitely taking out the beverages that are empty calories and diet sodas, diet beverages, man, I'll tell you what, they're almost as bad as drinking the sugar-laden ones. You know, a lot of the research came back on those artificial sweeteners and showed that the body kind of reacts to them poorly. Now, there are some natural sweeteners that are not sugar that I find are helpful. I really like monk fruit. The research that I've seen on it so far, very promising. Allulose is another one, Allulose, allulose. It's a sugar that's on the outside of figs and dates and things. It's really promising as well. It's 0 on the glycemic index, but it's actually a nice sweetener. It actually has been shown to really help digestion. So I really like that. I personally tolerate stevia well, but I know not everyone does. I would stay away from sugar alcohols like erythritol, maltitol. Those two are the big ones that I see a lot of. They don't digest well. You'll immediately get gassy and bloated, especially if you have too much. They've actually started pulling sugar alcohols, and now you'll see labels made with no sugar alcohol. Really want to watch out for those. But warm water, friends. Tea without the tea. Try it and see. Let's talk about cooked food. Okay. Now, again, raw food vegans, all y'all, don't come at me. If you found some system that works for you, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the folks that have been struggling with healthy weight management, that are looking for solutions. And I have to tell you, salad is usually not the solution. I haven't met a ton of people that have switched over to salads and feel A, good about their lives, or B, are actually achieving healthy weight management. Okay? So raw food is not the answer. It's super trendy, but it's too hard on digestion. So remember when I was talking about how we want to make sure that the food is easily cooked in the body? That means we want to do as much cooking on the outside as possible before we take it on the inside, especially if our digestive fire isn't acting the way we want it to, or we're dealing with excess AMA. The simpler we can make it for our digestive fire, the better. And so we want to make sure that we're cooking food well. That's why soups and khichiris and all of those things are so beneficial, is because they're already cooked well. That's why when you're sick, you get soup. No one's giving you a salad when you're sick. I hope not. If friends are bringing you salad when you're sick, maybe get better friends. No, just kidding. But really, if they're bringing you salad, be like, no, friend, soup. So the body has to work extra hard to break down that raw food. That weakens Agni over time, and that leads to gas, bloating, weight gain, excess AMA, all of those things. So eat cooked food, right? And there's science to back this up. Cooking pre-digests the food, which makes it easier to absorb the nutrients and reduce the energy required for digestion. And then they did a study on thermogenesis that found that cooked food requires less digestive effort, which helps regulate appetite and metabolism. And I've seen studies, right? Because people will come and tell me, well, raw food has more nutrients. It may, but they're not bioavailable. Okay? So you can take your cup of raw food and your cup of cooked food. The raw food may, in scientific testing, looks like it has more nutrients, but your body isn't able to assimilate them. So what's the point? If your body isn't able to assimilate the nutrition, that means you're not digesting it, which means you're not digesting, which means your digestive fire is having a hard time with it. So the cooked food is going to be the better option. Again, if you're a raw food vegan or whatever you're dealing with, that's fine. Do you, friend. Don't come at me. I'm talking to the people that are looking for solutions to make sure their digestive fire is working well. Okay? What to eat instead? Well, we talked about it. Warm, spiced, well-cooked meals. Lightly steamed greens instead of raw salads. So I have a couple of recipes for cooked salads on my website. I'll link to the recipe section in the show notes. But it's not rocket science. You just saute the greens, roast a vegetable, keep it simple. I think a green, one roast vegetable. If you want to add a little flourish, you could do a little sprinkle of sesame seeds or pumpkin seeds. Then you can even put your salad dressing on it, right? If you really don't want to eat it warm, especially in the summer, you could eat at room temperature, but I think it's been super cold. It's going to be negative 15 degrees here tonight. I don't want anything cold. It's not going to be good. And then doing stewed fruits instead of raw fruits. Now, this isn't across the board. There are some people that raw fruit is okay for them, but if I was dealing with someone whose digestion was impaired, their Agni isn't going as well as they'd like, then I would say eat cooked fruit. And if you're going to eat raw fruit, eat it away from anything else. Cooked fruit, you can absolutely put on a porridge or add into like a baked oatmeal or something like that, because the fruit and the food tends to work itself out. But raw fruit digests at a different rate than other food, so we want to keep raw fruit separate. Finally, let's talk about eating the right amount. This is something that a lot of people struggle with because their eyes are often, right? We all say this, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And so I've done it. I do it all the time because I get really excited about food, as some of you know. But overeating kills digestion. like I did last night, I overate the spoon fudge. My digestion tanked. I felt like crap. You do the math. So Ayurveda teaches us that we should eat until we're about 3/4 full. There needs to be a quarter left empty. That's the space for digestion, because your stomach does its own peristalsis. It needs to be able to churn the food. If you've ever overloaded your washing machine, you know how this goes. Think of it. Your washing machine is trying to churn your clothes to clean them. Your stomach is trying to churn your food to digest it. If there's not enough room for that action to happen, you're going to have a bad time. So they say put half of your stomach should be filled with food. And let's talk a little bit about your stomach. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you're not going to be able to see this. So I want you to visualize it, or you can do it with me. But you're going to hold up your fist and look at your fist. Look at the size of your fist. This is very instructive. Your fist, that's how big your stomach is when it's empty. And it's very specific to you. Your fist is the size of your stomach. My fist is the size of my stomach. And your stomach is up underneath your left pectoral muscle. So snuggled up next to your heart. We only want to eat until about half of that is filled with food. Okay? Now cup your two hands together like you're making a bowl with your hands. That's about the amount of food you should be eating at any time. And I actually got bowls specifically for this. Going to get one to show you. So I got bowls specifically that are just the right size that fit into my hand. See that? And they're beautiful. I'll link to them in the show notes. I don't have an affiliate. I don't work for them. It's fine. But I think they're 12-ounce bowls, if I remember correctly. But they're the perfect size for a portion of food for me. And I find that if I eat more than this, I get sick. If I eat less than this, I'm hungry. So this is about half of my stomach, because when you cup your two hands together, that's about half of your fist, right? And remember, your stomach does expand. It's not that it's always this size. It's just the size of your fist when your stomach is empty of food. So half of your stomach equals food. A quarter of it is water or digestive tea. You're not drinking a bunch of water while you're eating, just little sips of warm water or digestive tea. And then a quarter of that is empty space left over for digestion to happen. Now, how do you know when you've reached that point? Well, first off is to be paying attention. The second is to be chewing your food, being mindful. And then I really like to wait for the burp. We've talked about it a million times. It's one of my favorite things. And I actually have a client who ended up losing a ton of weight, not really trying, because she started listening for her burp. And we're talking about healthy weight management, right? Not everybody needs to lose weight. Some people are just trying to maintain. Others are trying to gain. Everybody's got a different story. And I'm not talking about quick weight loss secrets or anything like that. That's not my jam. You all know that. Just giving you some anecdotal evidence of what's worked for people. Waiting for that burp was life-changing for her. And so what it is if you're eating mindfully, you're eating slowly, when that little quarter empty space is starting to be displaced, there's this little burp that comes. When that burp comes, you're done. You're done. Stop eating. Stop eating and wait 20 minutes. If you're still hungry for vegetables or something healthy after 20 minutes, eat a little more. Chances are good you're going to hit that 20 minutes and you're going to be like, actually, I'm not hungry. So how to stop overeating naturally is to eat mindfully. Chew your food well. No distractions. Sit quietly. Stop eating before you feel stuffed, because your stomach needs that space to digest. And stick to 3 meals a day. Constant grazing weakens digestion. If you think back to our ancestors, there wasn't this constant food source. If we think back to our hunter-gatherer days, you ate when there was food, and there often wasn't food, and we survived. I'm not saying that you need to starve yourself now. I never think that's the solution. Your body needs to eat in order to keep the digestive fire regulated. Starvation diets don't work. There are some wonderful cases of where fasting is useful in certain medical situations, but generally speaking, the only fasting you're doing is between dinner and breakfast. That's it. Really paying attention to your digestive fire, eating appropriately. We have to optimize our digestion, keep the digestive fire strong, clear out the ama, sip warm water, eat cooked foods, and respect your body's hunger cues and satiety cues. When you do all of that, your body will regulate appropriately. So just to recap, we strengthen Agni with warm, spiced, easy to digest meals of appropriate size. We clear ama by avoiding snacking, by eating light dinners, and making sure that we chew well. We drink warm water to boost digestion and metabolism, and that's another way we can clear out ama. Then we're eating cooked food instead of raw food, making sure our meals are easy to digest, and then eating until we're only 3/4 full because our stomach needs space to process food properly. I'm hoping that helps to clear up some of the confusion around healthy weight management according to Ayurveda. I absolutely want to hear from you. And so if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who's stuck in the toxic diet cycle, right? Share it with people, let them know these things work. And I have to say, none of them work overnight. You have to be consistent. Consistency is key. These are habits that you're building into your life that will serve you for a lifetime. So don't expect anything to be get healthy quick scheme. There's none of that. What it all is, it's about building in healthy habits day after day. And some days are going to be great. Some days are going to be really challenging, and that's okay. That's the way it goes. We've all been there. I ate too much fudge last night. Come on now. I'm here telling you about this, and I just did it yesterday. So don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up. Use the next opportunity you possibly can to get back on the pony. Drink a little warm water. Maybe dinner's even lighter. You really need to pay attention. If you're ready to go deeper into Ayurveda, you can do a couple of things. So you could sign up for the email list. So I send out a newsletter every week. It's got a healthy recipe in it and a healthy Ayurvedic tip in it. You really can't go wrong. It's completely free. It's just another way I like to serve the community. If you feel like you want to go even deeper, you're ready to work with me, then I want you to reach out. We'll book an appointment and I'll give you your whole one-on-one plan, tailor-made just for you. Okay? And if none of that works for you, you want to just keep listening to the podcast, just keep listening to the podcast. That's why I'm doing it. I want you to have all the tools and techniques you need to take care of yourself. I want to thank you for being here, friend. I want to thank you for listening to this whole episode and for being here with me to help to learn how to be a better, healthier person. The way we do this in this world, the way we make it a better place is by taking care of ourselves. I truly believe that, and I think you do too. I think that's why you're here. In case no one's told you yet today, I love you, and I'm convinced of your capacity to continue crafting a life worth living. Thank you so much for being here, friends, and I can't wait to see you again in the next episode. Bye.